In this topic, we're going to discuss the esophagus and stomach in the alimentary canal. So, by the end of this topic, you should be able to answer the questions: describe the swallowing reflex, what is the epiglottis, what is peristalsis, what are the sphincter muscles, what does hydrochloric acid do, what is gastric juice, and finally, what happens in the stomach. So just to recap, food is ingested using the teeth, lips, and tongue, and chewing food is an example of mechanical digestion. This is that the food is broken down into smaller pieces so that it can easily be swallowed. The tongue mixes the food with saliva to form a bolus, which is then swallowed. So saliva is made in the salivary glands, and it's a mixture of water, mucus, and salivary amylase. Chemical digestion also occurs in your mouth because enzymes are breaking down the food. Can you remember what the enzyme in your mouth is called? Amylase. So carbohydrates get broken down into maltose by the enzyme amylase. Did you know that you cannot breathe and swallow at the same time? This is because you've got a flap called the epiglottis, which protects your windpipe, which we call your trachea, from the food going into it. Your tongue pushes the bolus to the back of the mouth, the pharynx, and then the food is swallowed. Swallowing forces the food into the esophagus, and the soft palate, which you can see at the top of the diagram there, prevents food from entering the nasal cavity. So swallowing as a reflex action started when the food touches the soft part of the palate at the back of your mouth. So here you can see the epiglottis starting to move and cover the trachea, and the bolus is pushed down into the esophagus. So the food moves down the esophagus into the stomach. The esophagus is a tube connecting the mouth to the stomach, and it sits behind your trachea, which is your windpipe. So if you feel in the front of your neck there, that's your trachea. You can feel the cartilage, and sitting behind that is your esophagus. So why is it we can swallow upside down? This is because food is moved through the esophagus by muscular contractions and relaxations. It's kind of like when you're squeezing cake mixture through a soft tube. We call this peristalsis. So the esophagus delivers the food to your stomach. Remember to copy down the purple words into your notes. So from the esophagus, the food goes into the stomach. Now the stomach's a hollow organ or a container that holds food while it's being mixed with enzymes that continue the process of breaking down food into a usable form. The top and bottom of the stomach are closed off by sphincter muscles. The cardiac sphincter prevents food from moving up into the esophagus as it's being churned in the stomach, and the bottom sphincter is called the pyloric sphincter. Cells in the lining of the stomach secrete a strong acid called hydrochloric acid and a powerful digesting enzyme called pepsin. Pepsin breaks down proteins into polypeptides. The hydrochloric acid is antiseptic, which means that it can kill any bacteria that enters the stomach. It also provides the correct acid medium for digestive enzyme pepsin to work. Now the stomach's got a thick layer of mucus which prevents the digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid from damaging it. So gastric juice, which is secreted into the stomach, is a mixture of secretions made in the glands in the lining of the stomach. So it contains pepsin, which I've just mentioned, and this is a protease enzyme. This means it breaks down proteins to polypeptides. So this is where protein digestion begins. Hydrochloric acid provides the best pH for pepsin to work. So pepsin works best at a low pH, an acidic pH of about 3. Hydrochloric acid also kills bacteria. And then you've also got mucus surrounding the stomach, and this prevents the acid and pepsin from damaging the stomach lining. So food is churned in the stomach by the muscular action of the stomach muscles. The food becomes a soup-like mixture called chyme. When the contents of the stomach are sufficiently processed, they're released into the first part of the small intestine called the duodenum, and they're released by or through the tube when the pyloric sphincter opens. So remember that both mechanical and chemical digestion occur in the stomach. Mechanical digestion is when the muscles contract, whilst chemical digestion occurs when the enzyme, pepsin, breaks down proteins into polypeptides. Okay, so just to recap, we looked at the swallowing reflex when the food touches the soft palate and you swallow. We looked at the epiglottis, peristalsis, the sphincter muscle, so you got the cardiac sphincter and the pyloric sphincter, hydrochloric acid, so hydrochloric acid being an antiseptic, it kills bacteria, and it also provides the correct acidic medium for the enzyme pepsin. We looked at gastric juice. So gastric juice is made up of hydrochloric acid and pepsin. And then we looked at mechanical and chemical digestion in the stomach. And that concludes our lesson. The end.